We have a new episode of Legends and Leaders, and today it's great to have Noah here. Noah, you're the CEO of Acorns, an app that's really transformed the financial picture for many Americans. I think you guys are at 10 million plus people now, but you've really helped people get an understanding of what they can do with starting out small in finance and building up savings and building up, really building up their financial portfolio. And you have a lot of interesting experiences. You started out kind of DJing, and then you also built another startup in the creative space, and you've just kind of taken these skills and now working to just be in the financial area and help a lot of people through a friendly consumer app. So I'm excited to have you here and to get into your story.
It's good to be here, man.
Awesome. So Noah, initially, like you started out, I think, as a DJ. You're a stage DJ for Jennifer Lopez. You appeared on the Tonight Show and various different places. How did this experience of being a DJ help you learn eventually how to have a leadership position in business?
Yeah, so I got into DJing when I was 14. It was turntables or drums. I grew up in the East Village in New York City, so I think my parents were thrilled that it was turntables over drums because we had a small, 800 square foot apartment. 14, spent about 2 years every night for hours on end locked in my bedroom when I would come home from school to try to really hone the craft and become a master of the craft. I think that was a really important thing that I believed in, to become really good at something and get high quality with whatever it is you were pursuing. So I wanted to do that. And I did not show anybody, any of my friends or anyone in the world what I was doing really until I sort of emerged 2 years later. And I thought, I'm pretty good at this, and I think most of my friends thought I was not going to be good. So by 16, I was doing hip hop parties, nightclubs, etc. And through my teens and into early 20s, I started working with artists and this kind of thing. So I would say that the act of performing, whether it was in front of hundreds of people, thousands of people, sometimes tens of thousands of people, really honed that ability to understand human beings and what moves people and how to lose people and how to reconnect, effectively understanding or starting to understand human psychology and how the mind works. And I would say at the root of being a good leader or building anything, understanding what moves people, understanding human psychology, being a student, hopefully a lifelong student of human psychology, is a really important aspect to leading and, in my opinion, at least creating anything. One other thing I would say, that world, nightclubs, entertainment, it's a difficult, tough world, right? So from an early age, I was confronted by all kinds of characters that, that as you compare them to the world of business or whatever it is, it's like everything's a cakewalk from that. So that, I would say both those things. Both those things.
Mm-hmm. So I think that you wound up launching a couple different startups before you got to Acorns. One of which was a creative agency, and you helped launch Facebook's first app. Can you just share how you made this jump eventually from this music world, which was very different, to actually building the startup and then landing a client like Facebook?
Yeah, actually, it's not. It's actually a pretty kind of seamless story. The agency started in music, actually, and we were serving artists and record labels. So that was a kind of natural, transition. We started catching the attention of bigger companies at some point. The focus of the agency was a creative agency. We did product development and marketing, and it was all about connecting with young people and building better things for young people. Probably the impetus for that, at least in terms of the focus on young adults and trying to create better products and better services for young people, goes back to childhood and growing up in a household with parents who are very ethical and focused on integrity and doing the right thing. So that sort of gene had been constructed from a very, that DNA was constructed from a very early time. It was an exciting experience in mid-20s to be able to work on these kinds of projects across pretty much every category. I mean, we worked in everything from music to fitness to beverages to processor chips to financial services.
Wow.
And and learned product development, really learned marketing, and the combination of both since we did both.
So it was a wide amount of areas you were in. You were learning a lot from that experience. I think, there's another business that you created, which was Say, and you wound up getting Elon Musk Tesla as a client it was a pretty relatively new company. And you were focused on shareholder rights. Why did you kind of find a niche in that avenue, the shareholder rights avenue, and how did you go and get Elon as a client there too?
Yeah. This is a story. So somewhere along the way, someone challenged me to write down my purpose, and I thought
Mhm.
this felt very grandiose, like write down my purpose. I don't know what my I mean, but I thought, oh, I'll try this. By the way, I actually think it's a great exercise for anybody to sit down, write it, and see what comes out naturally. Don't obsess about it. Just see what comes out naturally. So I sat down with a pen and level the playing field, like wrote itself. It was a very immediate thing, and I thought, huh, like that's really organic and natural and authentic to who I am, that it came out that way. And then I started looking at my life through that filter.
Hmm.
Okay, if my purpose, at least professionally, would be leveling the playing field, where does that come from? And how do I apply it to the things I'm doing? And are the things I'm doing sort of living up to that purpose? It gives you a really interesting lens through which to view your life and your work. So you asked about Say was very clearly about helping small shareholders use the power of their voice and voice their shares. That's why we called it Say, like have a say, basically.
Huh.
And effectively, if you become an investor, you actually you have a right to vote your shares. Most people probably know that, but it's not exactly super convenient to do that. And we wanted to make it much easier to allow people to use their voice to vote their shares. And as luck would have it, Elon, and Tesla had the same view. And so the first piece of software we created was a Q&A product that would allow someone like Elon, the head of a public company, during an earnings call to invite all their shareholders to ask questions. People would vote up the questions that they liked or vote down the
Wow.
questions that they didn't like. And then he would answer 3 questions from small shareholders, not just big institutional shareholders who are the ones that get to ask all the questions on earnings calls. So this was very exciting. It was really, it was about helping the small guy and speaking about leveling the playing field. That was the core of it. So that really ended up feeling like, okay, this is very much in keeping with this thing that came out of me naturally as a purpose.
Mhm. So you mentioned like the background that your parents kind of gave you in terms of the ethics, and then Say here was focusing on helping the smaller person out. Like, why do you think that this has been such an initiative now at Acorns? You're helping smaller investors. Why focus on these smaller people that may not have access to the same opportunities that larger institutions or maybe wealthier individuals have?
Well, maybe this is fair or not fair to say. I don't think wealthy people need a lot of help in this way. So they've got the financial advisors, all the help that they need to manage their money. The question is, how do you bring the rest of the world and the country into the system? And, Acorns is all about putting the responsible tools of wealth making in everyone else's hands. That's our reason for being. Same connection back to the purpose of leveling the playing field. I'm really passionate about, excited about, and fulfilled by the act of providing opportunities to people who might not have them. I've had opportunities provided to me. I think paying it forward, is the right way to live your life. And so we really construct Acorns around that idea. The idea of responsible tools of wealth making is really important. I don't think most people really understand this fully about us as compared to the rest of the industry. But when we put products out into the market, these products are constructed to be good for consumers and to put the customer first, and to lead
Hmm.
with integrity. So we don't offer trading. People have beef with us about that, but we don't offer trading because trading is gambling. We offer investing, which is about constructing a diversified portfolio, which we do for you, and taking a long-term view and thinking about a 40-year arc. We have this great screen. It's my favorite screen in the app called the Potential Screen. And I want you to be an investor for life. I want you to stick with it, contribute small amounts, dollar cost average. I don't want you trading in and out of the market, which effectively means you're not compounding.
Hmm. So you guys have this, really great feature, like the roundups feature, and it was pretty revolutionary in the space that you can, have your extra change rolled up into investing. How did that? Can you just share a bit of like how that kind of came about, and like, how impactful has it been to the business overall, that one feature?
In product and marketing, it can be really useful to think about behaviors that are existing behaviors. And so everybody has spare change. So it's a really relatable idea. You've got it in your couch, your cup holder, your pocket, whatever. So that, I think that was how that connected to people. Oh, I can invest this spare change that I already have and I don't need to think about it. That seems achievable. And it seems like something I can do in the background of life. So, that was our beginning hook, right? And it's still, by the way, it's still the thing that really resonates for people because it's so easy to understand and relate to. So that was the beginning of that. Whenever I'm talking about product and marketing, I think it's, how do you meet people where they are as much as possible while also trying to lead them toward your own vision of the future? And so Spare
Mhm.
Change is a really nice vehicle for that.
So there's also another feature that I think is a bit in line with like what you just mentioned there, Noah, which is like this debit card that teaches the youth financial discipline, and how to spend. Yeah, can you like share like why that product, why you guys decided to roll out a product like that, and like how has that helped the youth, really have discipline?
Yeah, by the way, it's not just for youth. I mean, our customers run the gamut from birth, because we have Acorns early, parents can open up Acorns for their kids, all the way to 98. You know,
Mhm.
a good percentage of our customers are actually over 50, 60 years old. So
Wow.
that, that's one thing to understand. Yeah, we have two cards. One is the green card. The other is the black card, and it's called the Mighty Oak card. The connection is from tiny acorns, mighty oaks do grow. And the idea there is that effectively all the cards in the market help you spend money. We want to help you grow money. That's the core of Acorns. And that actually means we want to help you spend less so that you can save and invest more. That's the thrust of the product. So every time you swipe, round up and invest the spare change. We have a feature that allows you to auto allocate part of your paycheck to emergency savings, investing, retirement before you spend it. That's the kind of real orientation of our product. Spend less, save and invest more. And on top of it, I think these are pretty competitive in the space. With the Mighty Oak card, you get a 3% APY on checking, and you get a 5% APY on emergency savings. So those are both pretty competitive returns, and they're obviously guaranteed return rates. So, for example, in the first couple of months, on average, we've had people save up $750 into their emergency savings accounts with the Mighty Oak card. I'm sure you know the statistic that's pretty famous that 70% of Americans don't have $1,000 in emergency savings. So we're proud of that achievement. But on top of it, if you do save $1,000 in emergency savings with us today over the year, that's 50, you get $50 in APY, 2,000, $100, et cetera, et cetera. So there's guaranteed returns. And of course, in our retirement and investing products, annual compound return rates historically have been 8, 9, 10%. So you can earn even more by allocating part of your paycheck to those products.
Mhm. So no, what you said is like it's pretty logical, right? And you would think that many people, if not everybody, would want to do, would want to enroll in that because they can, earn and they can save and really grow their savings, right? So what do you think it's going to actually take to get so many more Americans and just people throughout the world to be enrolled in what you're doing and just in general focusing on having better personal finance so they don't just have $1,000 left and in their so they can get to a point where they have 1,000 or more, in emergency funds left.
The first and most important part of that, the answer to that question, is parents starting to save and invest for their kids at birth. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'll share two statistics that really move me. One of them is if you put $7,000 into an investment account for your kids, and in our world, it's Acorns Early. That's our kids investing product. At birth, $7,000. By retirement 65, you have $1 million with an 8% annual compound rate. So $7,000 into your kid's account at birth, they will have $1 million by retirement. I've heard this argument made by a few people, but it's certainly an argument that we make. That's one way to solve the retirement epidemic in the country for future generations. A lot of people don't have $7,000, so that's just the reality. If you do $5 a day starting at birth in your kid's investment account, and the kid takes over at 18 and does $5 a day all the way through retirement, they will have over $4 million in their investment account by retirement. So $5 a day, again, may not be achievable for everybody, but a lot of people can figure out a way to do that. And if you start doing that for your kids, you're going to make a huge difference and encourage them to take over at 18 and continue doing it till they retire. These are really the most fundamental ways to change the shape of the future, I think, for our country, and the kids. As for people who are already adults, you have to stop thinking about the future as far off. I mean, it's a really unfortunate thing that retirement accounts are called retirement accounts because embedded in the name is the idea that you can do it later. It's something that you can put off. It's way later. It turns out that one of the really important ways to get people to save for retirement is to show them a picture of what they're going to look like in retirement, because it's very hard for people to visualize life later. So I think you've got to stop putting off tomorrow and take action today. And that comes back to the question you asked about spare change. It is the easiest way in a few minutes to just start changing your future today with a little spare money. If you stay committed and do that plus $5 a day or $20 a week, I mean, you can really change it's like 5 minutes. Just do it.
Mm-hmm. You've seen that like the spare change people are investing has changed their lives.
I mean, we have millions of customers. We have incredible stories about people who have, for instance, saved up using Acorns and like been confronted by terrible tragedies like cancer and things like this. And they suddenly realize how much money they have in their Acorns account and that they can use that money for treatment. I mean, that's an extreme example, but there's so many different use cases for the product and so many different ways to start saving and making sure you have a better life. You have to have emergency savings. We have an emergency savings product. You have to have money in case of an emergency. I'll tell you a statistic that we just put out in the Acorns Money Matters report, which came out just recently. 1/3 of young people believe that their current financial situation could lead them to homelessness. Now, why is that? Well, cost of living, inflation, debt, but really why is that? It's because people don't have savings. If you have savings, if you've really committed to making sure you have a fallback plan, then you're not going to have that kind of anxiety and fear. But if you're living day to day and you're not taking those baby steps to change your life, when things get tough, when inflation is high and cost of living is high and borrowing costs are high and the sort of confluence of events that are happening now, people are afraid about global war and conflict, AI, climate change, all of this sort of surround sound anxiety. It's going to rise to a level of becoming totally overwhelming if you don't have that fallback solution.
So, you guys have taken a unique approach in terms of like the design of your product. Like, yes, there's the Acorns aspect that it's like, it's something that can sprout into something much bigger. And that's part of the logo, but also just the way the app is designed. It's very simple to use. It's a pretty easy interface. It's approachable. It's just, the money can roll up through your spare change. How did you go about like designing as you guys have created, but how did you go about designing the app? And then also when you roll out like new features, like how do you think about making them simple for the user from an app user perspective?
We have a core product principle. It's called make big decisions small. Don't make people do math. I think everyone would probably agree that most financial services companies make people do math. And that can be sort of like 7 screens, away in fine print somewhere, but it's all about basis points and this and that. And it's like, nobody knows how to do any of that, So make big decisions small is we want to make it really easy to get started. We want to make it really easy to stay committed. And then we never want to make people do math. That comes back, by the way, even to our business model. We have a subscription business model primarily. It's a vast majority of how we grow our business. We have 3 tiers: simple, transparent, clear for customers. The basis points model is just like people don't understand how that works. So we wanted to make it extremely simple to understand what you're paying, what you're getting, and those types of things. So that's how we do it. I think we lead with principles, clear principles, and the whole organization knows that Acorns is about accessibility and making things approachable for people. And that goes from our product all the way through to our brand and the language we use. And by the way, I connect that also to what makes a leader a leader. I think great leaders simplify. I think bad leaders complicate.
Yeah, I agree. So personal finance is so much of what you're focused on now. I mean, I think earlier on you had different focuses, but now personal finance and like helping people really gain control over that is a big focus, Noah. From kind of your own why are you so into this mission? Like why does this mission drive you so much?
The leveling the playing field purpose that I told you about goes, when I wrote that, or I should say when it wrote itself, I looked at my origin story through that lens. Like, why did this come out of me? Why is this important to me? Why do I care about putting this type of product into the world and being a spokesperson for the responsible tools of wealth making? I'm not a finance. By the way, I don't come from a finance background and I don't come from a tech background, even though I've done a lot of product development work. So why was it important? Well, for starters, I grew up in the East Village in New York City. I didn't come from a lot of money. I was a public school kid through ninth grade. At the same time, when I was 2.5, my father put a tennis racket in my hand and I started to learn to play tennis. And by 8 years old, I was playing tournaments. And as you can imagine, that world is very different than New York City East, public school world. And straddling the line between those two worlds, as I thought about this idea of leveling the playing field, like I came to understand that line, how this side lives, how that side lives. And that sort of played forward in many, many ways in my life. So I think being a person who saw the line and being a person who had access to both sides of it, I thought, leveling the playing field makes a lot of sense in the context of that. And then the other thing I would say is, you were talking about the agency I had in my mid to late 20s that we ended up selling. But one of our first big clients was Chase. And they hired us with the remit of making a product, actually to make Chase more relevant to students. And we came back with a product called Chase Plus One, which was the first credit card to reward responsibility rather than spending. And that was, there's a lot of dimensions to that I could get into, but we don't have a ton of time. But what I would say is, we got that to a point of responsibility all the way to kind of like the 10-yard line. But then as it goes with credit card products in big financial institutions, there was an APR rate that was prime plus 9 on it. And we were driving everything but the business model. And that really, that hurt. You know what I mean? That hurt. And actually, it created a feeling of anger inside of me because we had done all this work to try to create this thing that was good for people. And there's nothing like anger to motivate you to build something in response to it. I mean, having something to prove, having something to respond to that way, where you feel like I'm fired up with a level of intensity that you can't imagine because in effect, this thing wronged me. That's, there's nothing like that fire. I like meeting people who have that. I like meeting people who have that fire, who had a tough background, tough child, whatever, right? Because maybe you have something to prove.
Wow, that's great. So you were in both these kind of worlds, and you saw that you needed to bridge the gap, and you worked on a project, and that project you thought it was going to help these people and do kind of what you're doing now, but it wasn't. So you're like, I'm going to go embark on that mission. So because some people may have just ended it there, and that's that.
Yeah, it was. So the reward responsibility was like when you pay your bill off on time, you earn points. The whole points model was constructed around paying off your bill on time, learning about credit, et cetera, not spending. For me, it was really unfinished business because it wasn't through and through integrity. And to me, integrity is through and through from the bottom to the top. And when you want to think about integrity in a business, the root of integrity is in the business model. So if your business model is fleecing people for 29% APR rates, hard to claim integrity there.
Right. So there's been some other aspects, like separate from Acorns, that you've been giving back and been very helpful to different communities. One of which is through the Give Kids Art program, that you've been helping underserved children with great art programs. Why is this something that you care about so much? And how have you helped to really build out these art programs for places that are underserved?
Yeah, so Give Kids Art, I'm going to plug it because it's obviously really good for kids, but it's givekidsart.org is something I started with my wife. And in fairness, she really founded it and she runs it. And it's all about giving kids access to art kits, art tools, and art programming through the Boys and Girls Clubs that they wouldn't have otherwise had. And as a child, the arts, music, visual arts, it was such an important part of my childhood and her childhood, and so foundational and formative for how we sort of turned out to be the people we are, to be curious, to create in the face of fear, all those types of things. And so to give that back, to pay that forward is just important. It's important work, and it's credit to her, my wife, Kara, who does a great job delivering that kind of programming. And by the way, if anybody's interested in the arts, you can contribute to givekidsart.org. We'd appreciate it and all the money goes straight to the programming. There's no, it's 100% of the money goes to the programming.
That's good. So just the last question I have, Noah, at this point in your life, like what are some of your personal and like professional goals? Like what do you hope to accomplish maybe over the next 5 to 10 years? What are some avenues that you want to explore that you haven't been in yet?
Well, so first through Acorns, for those of you who know our product and for those of you who don't, the way it works today is you sign up, we set you up with an investment account and ways to contribute to your investment account automatically, which is great. But the broad vision is to create what we call a financial wellness system. And so what that means is in the future, when you sign up for Acorns, you're not just going to get an investment account, you're going to get an emergency savings account, a retirement account, spending, expenses, giving, and products for your kids. Now we have most of those products, but most of them are available to you after the point of sign up. So in the future, when you sign up, you're going to get all of these products set up for you. And then when you add money, we're going to allocate the money across them for you. So making sure you have emergency savings, making sure you have retirement savings, right? And the fundamental problems that we're going to be solving with that is most people don't know what types of products they need. Most people certainly don't know how to think about where they should put money and how much. And then most people have an immense amount of anxiety when thinking about these problems. And so we want to solve all three of those consumer issues with this thing we call the financial wellness system. And, when I think about the market and what people need, I would say 100% of the market needs a money manager, basically. And I would say it doesn't exist. So I'm really, really excited about that. Some of the other passions, as you mentioned, are the arts and music and with kids. We have a product for kids that's attached to Acorns that's about helping kids learn financial literacy. It's called Go Henry by Acorns. And, you can help your kids get smarter with money, help them develop more of a foundation of financial literacy. It's really, really great that way. And the final thing for me, I love medicine and animals. If I wasn't doing what I'm doing, I probably would have been a doctor. That's what my Myers-Briggs score. I don't know if you've ever done that, but that's what it says I should have been. I love medicine and I love animals. So at some point, I think my wife and I will start a company around animals.
Well, no, I appreciate you coming on, sharing your story. And I'm definitely excited to see what you do next with Acorns and how you create this financial wellness system. I mean, there's so much that needs to be done there to really level the playing field, but also just help people save and have better financial and healthier situations. And, on the animal side and and with art, it's great that you're doing that and helping out with art, with charity there. I'm so excited to see that flourish too. Appreciate you coming on.
Thanks, Ben.